Live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. Unpause and repause, as we do every single day. I'm going to talk about some crazy rants, actually. Not just from Mark Levin, but also from Mamdani in his victory speech. Lists an awful lot of ethnicities there. Something appears to be missing with regards to this. White NIMBYist liberal women. Nancy Pelosi is not going to seek re-election, so hooray, we have a great victory today. Nancy Pelosi has decided she's just going to sit it out. She's probably, if I had to guess, it's medically related, because she had said only a few months ago she fully intended to seek re-election yet again. We've got the filibuster debate, and then we've got some other news that we're going to be talking about. Trump admin tells Congress it currently lacks legal justification to strike Venezuela. Not the boats, but, the actual landmass of Venezuela. This causes me to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief, because there were some sources that said, well, Trump might be, going after the narcos in Venezuela proper. Well, then you go from arguable diplomatically to outright act of war. That's not what I voted for Trump for, so I'm glad that the administration is backing off on that particular token. Hello, occult priestess. Indeed, lots and lots of news, and Bovrite, and tea, and coffee, and other things, and mushroom pills. I'm taking that too. Last speaking, hey sticks, ping ass. Nordic pagan soldier. I can't repeat your comment when I'm also live streaming on YouTube, but I still find it amusing. Yes, indeed, Henry Ford did believe that. Skippy. Ignore everyone but the women. Well, do you have a vagina or a penis? Because I'm not ignoring you. Yeah, it's going to be funny talking about Mark Levin. He totally went off. It was I mean, you listen to this, and the archived link is in the description, but if you want to see the actual video, it is on YouTube. Mark Levin's remarks to the RJC Annual Leadership Summit. We'll lead off today with that. He's completely embraced cancel culture. Now, I'm not saying that he hadn't really embraced cancel culture before, but it appears that Tucker Carlson talking to Nick Fuentes has pushed him over the edge. And now he spends this entire time, read it for yourself, there's a whole transcript here too, where he rambles about the need to silence people effectively for criticism of Israel, for saying things that he finds personally offensive, like if someone, says, well, Hitler was great, and, his art was cool. By the way, there's also a secondary aspect to this, the Hitler effect. The Hitler effect is that if anything is compared to Adolf Hitler, number one, the argument is arguably wrong. It tends to be. And number two, you can claim whatever you want about Adolf Hitler, as long as it's negative, of course. And it is undoubtedly true, and if anyone countermands you, even if you're objectively wrong, provably, like, the mythology that Hitler only had one working testicle or something like that, then you're defending Hitler. So that means that you're a Nazi too. It's a weird situation. It would be a little bit like tankies in their opinions about Joseph Stalin. No, that the Winter War wasn't a bad idea. How dare you, comrade? Something like that. Cooking Inferno. Won't be fun without guessing Pelosi's bra size at the State of the Union. Guess I'll have to move on to the hot and fertile Greta. Ugh. I don't know if she's fertile at all. I don't think she's into that shit. Mulgera, Clank, Mark Levin is a goddamn maniac. I hate the term woke right, but Levin is certainly woke. Yeah, listen to some of the weird shit that he says here. I'll tell you what I mean by that. For 6 months I've been fighting these bastards, whether it's Tucker Carlson or whether it's Nick Fuentes, and I've been looking over my shoulder looking for help. And you know what I found? Nothing. Nothing! We're here today to do something about this. I don't think you're going to be doing much about it because I don't think you realize what the current year is. To take a leaf out of the left-wing book. We canceled the John Birch Society. We canceled Joseph Sobering. We canceled pornography on TV. We canceled David Duke. Donald Trump canceled David Duke. We canceled Pat Buchanan. So you're embracing the concept of cancel culture. Now, in some of these cases, the person simply fell out of favor. You didn't cancel them or anything like that. We cancel stuff all the damn time. Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters, American hate. It's funny how Jew haters comes before America haters within the context of this particular quote. I'm just saying, I might notice something here. Churchill haters. You mean the one that firebombed, cities and caused millions of deaths? Never mind. You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them. It's called the market system. They don't have a lifetime job like a bureaucrat who we're going to protect. And if they're your friend, there's something wrong with you. No Hitler admirer, Holocaust denier, platformer should be anyone's friend, as a matter of fact. So in other words, guilt by association as well. That definitely plays a big role in censorship. You're not allowed to talk to somebody because they have views outside of whatever orthodoxy you happen to believe in. Well, I'm going to talk to Nick Fuentes if I want. I'll talk to a fucking bread tuber if I want. I'll talk to Mark Levin if I want. It does not matter. It does not mean that I necessarily share the same views. And damn right, I'm going to be platforming people with views opposite my own from time to time. It's amusing. Sometimes you have a debate. Sometimes you realize you have some things in common, too. There's nothing wrong with this. It's called discourse. It's called debate. It's called free expression. But this is something that Levin does not understand. Believe it or not everyone that is critical of an action taken by the state of Israel virulently hates Jews. Sometimes when people make Hitler references, it's very much tongue-in-cheek. You know how many memes of Hitler there are online? You have the spastica and stuff like that. Look at Kanye's song, which, by the way, is a really, really good song. Lemon Curd has arrived. Hello, Sticks. Hello to you as well. Mulgara. Also, Levin, unironically bragging about canceling Pat Buchanan is infuriating. I'm more of a Ron Paul guy, obviously, but Buchanan is damn good. At least a person with sanity. Last beacon, Nancy Pelosi and Mark Levin are part of the same type of category of why we have this failure within the neoconservative and neoliberal schools of thought. It's also why you have the uprising of outside views, too. But they're too dense to understand this. Everyone realizes that the system is bullshit. It's just we have differences of opinion on how we're going to change it from being bullshit to something that's actually stabilized. Mulgara, lifetime job like a bureaucrat who we're going to protect is super fucking telling. Such a swampy goddamn bastard. Yeah, exactly. Oh, protect the bureaucrats at all costs. Typical neocon opinion, by the way. This is why the Republicans lose elections. Cooking Inferno. Got a ride. Got to get rid of the dollar store Strom Thurmond McConnell. Bets on if he does in office before his official retirement. Oh, dies in office. Yeah, I think that he will probably, because he's had some severe health issues. Last beacon, mainly with the Tea Party and their inability to dethrone Obama in 2012. Yeah, they failed, at least at that one particular endeavor. The Tea Party sort of semi-collapsed, but it did become a cultural phenomenon. Admittedly, I wasn't really in favor of much of it. Some of it was really cringe, honestly. Sassmaster, what's your thoughts on the online discourse about the changing demographics of the West? Think it's going to lead to a drastic response in the future? Yeah, probably. I mean, you think about it, white people tend to be relatively docile and decadent, especially in the modern West, because, you've got relative wealth and stuff like that. But when they are pushed to a certain limit, then it goes from Geez Louise to, Sieg Heil, effectively. There are memes about this. White people anger. It's a very funny concept. So yeah, Mark Levin went completely off. You should watch the video for yourself later. It is very entertaining. You might want to get your popcorn. Well, I wouldn't get popcorn because I fucking hate it, but I don't know. I'll get a charcuterie board or something like that. That would be funny. Let's get to our sponsors before we get into what Mamdani said during his victory speech. because it's completely off the rails. I noticed that, the people that he's mentioning are not all of his constituents, but he has a special affinity towards some of them, it seems. By the way, Aurora Borealis tonight, for those of you in Canada and the northern United States. I'm going to be trying to see it myself, assuming that the clouds continue to clear out. We have cultivated-mind.com, where you can get mushroom pills. Yeah! They give you a boost of energy and are very, very good for your dietary health. They seem to have an impact on the gastrointestinal system that's pretty positive, actually. I've never really had problems with that anyway, but it seems to do wonders. So we'll take another mushroom pill. There's several varieties available. Also, there's Doggy Dose. Doggy Dose was a really good idea to create because doggos seem to love it a lot. Still got a bag, and I kind of want to, again, take it out and, give it out to random dogs and then record their reactions or something. Then we've got BiltonUSA.com. Yes, that is indeed Anton, a big friend of the channel. Anton, anytime he is mentioned, Bovright is consumed. I've got 2 more bottles of it, too. Ha ha ha. Still need more, though. You can never get enough of that stuff. Go through it pretty quick. He's got 4 imports. He's got various meats, Wagyu, Cabanassi, Angus sticks, and so forth. Sticks. It's sort of like the better version of beef jerky, honestly. And heavily seasoned. It's delicious, actually. It'd be perfect camping food. And also Stick, Sex, and Hammer mugs, tumblers, and shirts. And finally, we've got jamandbean.com. JAMNbean.com. The land of clanker coffee. It gets a sniff every single day. I'm going to need a little bit more of that pretty soon. Also, lots and lots of teas available as well. Yunnan Jig, bottoms up. Yunnan Jig is great. The green tea, that's caffeine free. If you don't like caffeine, some people are caffeine sensitive. I myself do not have this problem. There are plenty of herbal teas available there as well. So those are our sponsors. Use code STICKS, by the way, for a discount. Last beacon, and I appreciate you platforming me even though I kind of spam and meme. Yeah, I mean, if it's limited amount of spamming, that's perfectly fine. It is why we need a new cultural and social rebranding of how conservatism and liberalism works, because to tell you the truth, the neoconservative school of thought has been a fundamental failure. Yeah, I mean, obviously. Yeah, let's ignore the border, and we're going to slightly reduce taxes from the excessive taxation that was passed by our political adversaries only a few decades ago. That's basically, neoconservatism is slow walking your way to destruction. It's like, there's the cliff, and you're moving towards it. The socialist wants to grab your hand and just throw you off the fucking cliff. Neocons will say, no, go ahead and throw yourself off, just do it very slowly. That's the Bushism sort of idea. Mulgera. Mark Levin's voice is an 8th Amendment violation. I'd rather listen to RFK Jr. reading a smut novel to me. If he were to do that, it would be a very, very viral video, by the way. Last beacon, and it's also why we need to remove a lot of the dead cultural rot within the Republican Party and of the Tea Party. Jam that bean. Says Based Acid Fox. Anyways, I wanted to laugh about this too. I mean, that's a funny story because Levin, he just goes crazy. But Mamdani actually went crazy to the point where there were liberal commentators saying, well, Mamdani seemed like calm and personable before, if driven, but now all of a sudden he basically sounds like he's making a communist rally speech. Indeed, this is a quote from Zoran's victory speech. This movement was made by Yemeni bodega owners, Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers, Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks, and Ethiopian aunties. Now, who is not represented on this particular list of different people? other than, I suppose, to an extent, the Uzbek nurses. Uzbekistan actually, Caucasian diaspora of a sort, I suppose. The white NIMBYist liberal middle class that voted for him. Do you think that they were really enthused about Cuomo? No, many of his voters happen to be from that particular voting bloc, upper middle class white liberals. You look at the property prices in New York City. What do you see? Unless you're living in the literal pit of nowhere goddamn ghetto, if you're within New York City limits, you're probably going to pay minimum for a crack shack. You're going to pay like $500,000. So a lot of his voters actually were people who are white, middle to upper middle class, and NIMBYist liberals, Democrat partisans and stuff like that. You weren't minted by a bunch of Mexican abuelas or Trinidadian line cooks. And by the way, it's interesting. All of these are groups that people like you, because Mamdani is rich as a lord, exploit constantly. Line workers, cooks, people who own bodegas and stuff. So working class people. It was built by the ethnic working class that you have been screwing and now are seeking to drive, in some cases, out of New York City entirely. When you set up your government-run stores, what the hell do you think that's going to do to some of these bodegas? When you set up more regulations, what do you think is going to happen to some of these taxi drivers? I find that Senegalese taxi drivers. So are you investing in the racial trope that taxi drivers are always ethnic? Because that's not actually true. I'm thinking, how long has Mamdani even lived in New York City? What the hell are you smoking? Yeah, it must be some pretty good crack. I'm sure that you got it from a sleazy P. Martini instead of Hunter. Because Hunter's just going to sell you a bottle of Parmesan cheese because he's so stoned. I found this funny. It's petulant more than anything else. It's like he's trying to be some sort of highbrow. Well, I'm the ethnic that made it. All these other ethnics voted for me. That's basically his pitch here. It doesn't make any sense. And then you totally, again, cut out the NIMBYist white liberal class, among other people, that actually did vote for you at large levels. They tend to predominate in places like Manhattan. But, Jesus. Last beacon, and I believe we're getting pushed to that certain extent. The old cultural rod of the Republican Party post 9/11 and of the Tea Party is slowly fading away, and Obama is not looking too fresh. Yeah, they're trying to push Obama off the cliff too, actually. They're trying to get rid of his legacy. He must be pissed about this, by the way. Because Obama will come out and say, cool it. And they'll say, no, we refuse. No, we need to up the furnace even more. And Obama's like, that's not a good idea. I'm trying to warn you. At the very least, one positive thing you can say about Obama is he has a strategic mind, as opposed to simply being an ideologue. Now, this just makes him, a corny politician, but he knows how to win an election. The Democrats are not taking his advice by and large. Same with Fetterman and other people who still have some semblance of sanity. When the most intelligent person currently in office in your party had a massive stroke and has brain damage, you might want to rethink things, maybe? Mulgera, I'm okay with pushing Obama off a cliff. Dude's a little murderer. Well, I mean, supposedly his Martha's Vineyard property should be underwater by now, so yeah. Oh, and then we're going to talk about Nancy Pelosi. That's going to be a fun one. Nancy Pelosi, I'm almost sad that she's retiring because it's like she's a never-ending source of, video clips, basically. Because she gets all incoherent and you can't even understand what the hell she's saying. She was rambling, I made a video on this, about like transing kids and stuff like that and how she was sad. Because the state of California wouldn't allocate more funds to trans kids. Which, by the way, is part of Gavin Newsom's strategy to try to run for election. He's trying to appeal to, well, I wouldn't say moderates, but people on the center left, that they're a little bit iffy about the culture wars. Which is hysterical. Nordic Pagan Soldier over on Rumble. I'm not going to ban you, and I don't mind if you post, Henry Ford quotes and things like that. But, just tone it down a bit, if you may. You don't need to post the same thing over and over again at multiple people. It is not necessary, my friend. Yes. Abuela. Like AOC's Abuela, the one where when her house was wrecked by the hurricane, a bunch of conservatives stepped in to give her a shit ton of money, like enough to almost buy a new house. And AOC somehow, I don't know exactly how this worked, but complained about it to GoFundMe, and they canceled the campaign. I was not aware that third parties were legally able to do that, but apparently they are. And that's why Give, Send, Go became more popular, among others. Yeah, her abuela is probably, she showers in the rain quite literally because her roof is still ruined, probably. You think that AOC is the kind of person with the generosity to help her poor abuela? Probably not. Just saying. Everything is anti-Semitic if you criticize Israel in any way. Today Netanyahu ordered a strike that killed 1,000 orphans. Well, I have a problem with this. I don't believe in killing orphans. Anti-Semite. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit weird. The same does happen with Islam, too. If you criticize Mamdani, you're a racist as well. So, you can't criticize anyone. You might as well lean into the term and just say, okay, I'm fucking racist, because I'm going to get called it anyway. Literally doesn't matter what views I have unless I am self-deprecating constantly. For a white person, and this is the truth, there is no way out other than leaning into it at this point. Because it does not matter. Unless you literally hate yourself and you state this publicly, you will be called a Nazi. Or a fascist, or Islamophobic, or anti-Semite, something along those lines. It's impossible to criticize anyone and actually avoid these labels. So what we should do is just ignore the labels. I'm not pro-censorship. Gary Warren, self-defecation. Last beacon. Also, speaking of jam and bean, what would be a good Christmas blend? Because I like to have peppermint mocha with a whole load of sugar. Well, I'm always going to support Clanker blend myself. You can always add the mocha separately. Peppermint mocha. Mulgara. Nancy Pelosi is in a constant war to keep her dentures in her mouth and her droopy tits getting road rash, given how low those beanbags sag. Well, the other thing is she can't even get up off the floor on her own when she kneels down. You remember that when they had... And isn't this sort of a racist thing when you think about it? They had the black nationalist scarves or whatever the hell they were on her and a bunch of her other congressional cohorts, and then took the knee. And most of them are white, by the way, and all of them are wealthy. And then she couldn't even get up off the floor. It was highly symbolic of what BLM became. Last speaking, especially if it comes in one of those K-cups. Ugh, K-cups. I don't like those. They're only good if you're in a motel. Mulgara, the right really fucked up in their attacks on Mamdani. Attack him for the socialism, not the identity bullshit. Well, mainly they were, that's the whole thing. But if you said, hey, he's a communist, he's quoting Karl Marx, Islamophobe, you hate foreigners because he was born in Uganda and stuff like that. And it never made any sense whatsoever. It's completely illegitimate, but still, that defense remained. This has been happening for a long time, though. This is not the first wave of like with Levin and people like that. This is not the first wave of hyper-censorship that we've seen. And now, unfortunately and concerningly, it's not just coming from the far left that wants to cancel people for having, because they like guns, or they've sort of abandoned that issue. But they don't believe in excessive taxation. They don't believe the border should be open and stuff like that. So they'll call you a Nazi for that. Now it's also coming from the old neocon, evangelocon right, actually. with Levin and people like that. Christian Zionists, they've been labeled at times. Hoobuk. Hey, Sticks, have a good day, coward. Okay, I don't know why you're mad at me. I can mute Nordic Pagan Soldier. That's perfectly fine, but I believe in free expression. The local Wendigo. They were not black nationalist scarves, they were slave trader stuff. Well, yeah, I mean, they were probably made by people that were in slavery and had brown skin. That's one of the ironies. Randall Flag, Sticks, maybe you covered this already, but a Google Waymo self-driving taxi killed a beloved bodega cat in San Francisco. We need a total bot death to save Cass. I agree with you. Self-driving cars should be banned outright. Okay, Nordic Pagan, at this point you're beginning to piss other people off, so I'm muting you for 5 minutes. I don't have a problem with the messaging, but yeah, there's no reason to be spamming. Not at that level. Based Acid Fox. Europeans suck. Sort of depends on the European country. Sort of depends on the European. Their teeth are bad and their women hairy. Not if you go to the Netherlands. Europe should be under hell. Interesting reference to Grimoire, actually, the Grimorium Verum. It had different sigils, actually, for the... Sigil Stone will love that one. Different symbols, rather, for the 3 different continents that they knew existed at the time. For some reason, they just said the Americas, as though it were one, and I don't think Australia had been invented yet, so... And then you had Europe and Africa. CP Simple, Dutch women have no hair? No, I'm just saying that the idea that European women have like hairy pits and stuff is clearly wrong. Fireburn, guy clearly never saw beautiful Slavic females. Yeah, there are hot chicks all over the world. Lemon curd, that's actually the reason that I'm not wearing it at the moment, because I'm letting it rest after being oiled. Last speaking, I still find it funny, you know, one way or another. I would love to see Obama raise the middle finger at the Democrats once they go full bore crazy. That would be funny. Imagine that Obama gets so pissed because the Democratic Party is the party of insanity at this point. Imagine that he says, fuck you, and he just decides to come out and, you know, deliver a diatribe. It would be really, really funny to see them trying to counter that. It would also be really, really unsuccessful, I think. Per threads, Uzbeki, white. Hellenic, white. Hindustani, white. Where do you draw the line, mate? Only Anglo, Picts, Danes, Nords, Gauls, and some Celts are white, and only those? I mean, a person is white if they're white. It's pretty self-explanatory. All you have to do is use your eyes, actually. But there's a difference between white skin, like in the ethnic sense, and white culture, admittedly. Uzbeki would be white, I believe, yes. It extends into North Africa. It extends throughout the Mediterranean basin, well into Asia. That's the diaspora, basically. It's actually fascinating. There were occult works that were written, theosophical works specifically. Of course, it would be theosophy. That were talking about the rise of a new race in the United States that would be sort of like basically European, but would have, you know, various other features and stuff. I think that was Annie Besant that wrote that one. She's the one who adopted an Indian kid and declared him to be the new Krishna, and he disowned her. And he went off and did his own like meditation teachings and said she was a crazy lady. Interesting movement. There's a reason why Rudolf Steiner, who was always intellectually superior to her, decided to leave and form Anthroposophy. Last beacon. I mean, what is the mainline left going to do what Donald Trump is gone? I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're just going to rant, rave, scream, and cry. Oh, no, because then they'll have J.D. Vance to complain about. They'll be comparing Trump to Palpatine and J.D. Vance to Darth Vader. You will see Star Wars-related memes. Last beacon, but the thing is, their energy is not going to be directed at Donald Trump. It's going to be all over the place, and then they're going to be looked on as insane. Yeah, but the thing is, the partisans won't think that it's insane. Partisan Dems will vote Dem. Partisan Republicans will vote Republican. Doesn't really matter what candidate is offered. It's vote blue no matter who. Vote red, it's better than dead. It's stupid shit like that. Tea good. I have a feeling that J.D. Vance will be the next president of the United States. Yes, with Nancy Pelosi retiring and Dick Cheney dying within a 48-hour period, it's actually been pretty fun. Mulgera, did you see Marjorie Taylor Greene is considering running in 2028? What do you think? No, I wouldn't vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Not after her recent comments with regards to Trump and some of his policies. I in good faith, I would not be able to vote for her for president of the United States. If you want to give me a female president, give me Tulsi, that's fine. Fucking give me Boebert, that's fine too. At least she's got good tits. Just ask that Democratic staffer that set her up at the theater that one time while they were both vaping together. Yeah. Hadoo. I will crawl over broken glass to vote for Vance. After his embracing of memes about him, at least he has a good sense of humor. He's coherent. Well, I mean, that sets him apart from like 80% of politicians right there. Perfectly acceptable. At this point, I would vote for J.D. Vance. But I wouldn't vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Sorry, I couldn't, no. Mulgera, I couldn't vote for Vance because Palantir. I couldn't vote for MTG either because she ain't Massey or Rand Paul. Rand Paul is principled. That does not mean that he's always pragmatic. But, I mean, you've got to like the fact that he's got principles. This puts him above 80% of all existent politicians, regardless of party or nation. Last beacon, that's because Alexandria would rather use her own grandmother as a stop. These people are nihilist misanthropes and they're only socialist at the surface. Yeah, AOC, probably she wanted to take pictures of her abuela's ruined structure so that she could grandstand. In fact, that's exactly what she did. Then when people said, well, we'll pay for it. Don't worry, we'll take care of your abuela's home. No, you're not allowed to do that. I haven't gotten done taking more pictures. Nancy Pelosi is not seeking re-election. I wish that I had a bell to ring right now, in celebration of the fact that Nancy Pelosi will finally no longer be in Congress. Nancy Pelosi, the first and only female Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives and one of the most powerful figures in Democratic politics for decades, has announced she will not seek re-election. By the way, this was a warning to the Democrats, actually. The first female Speaker of the House is a nincompoop, originally just an ideologue, who, by the way, botched it on multiple issues over time, locking things down, strategic failures of various kinds, and was in and out several times as well. That was the reason why it was unwise to elect Kamala. Do you want the first female president to be like the first female Speaker of the House? I think I'd prefer a Tulsi Gabbard myself. Pelosi, though, the one redeeming feature is that she's immensely funny. She doesn't have a sense of humor, but there's humor about her. Because she'll say weird shit, and she'll do weird shit, and sometimes you're not 100% sure what she's saying. And I can almost guarantee you that the reason that she decided to stand down was medically related. Because she said flat out, not long ago, I intend to seek re-election. And she was unequivocal about it. I think she was serious about it too. I don't think that she was lying. She said, yeah, I'm going to seek another term in Congress. Of course I will. I have a feeling that her medical staff and her aides and her family intervened and said, don't be the next Joe Biden. Just stand down. It's the best thing to do. Because otherwise, you could lose. You'd probably die in office because you're not well. And it'll be a shit show. I'm almost going to miss Nancy Pelosi simply for the clips of her saying incoherent things and doing things that do not make sense. I'm hoping that some other elderly, decrepit retard decides to take her place. That would be funny. Copium Poppies, Sticks, check your DMs. No rush, doesn't need to be on stream. I tricked Grok into being based by calling Grok racist for advocating against making dangerous chemical concoctions. Huh. Yeah, Grok can generate some weird shit. Just look at the Bert and Ernie memes that I posted the other day on Twitter if you don't believe me. Last Beacon, exactly. Learn to lean into things. Learn to not give a shit. This is exactly why we have to get rid of the dead cultural rot within conservatism and liberalism. Mulgera, Tim Pool does a hilarious Pelosi impression. Yeah, I've seen it. He's pretty good at impressions, actually. It was weird because Pelosi's transing the kids' comments literally did not make sense. By the way, I was not 100% on whether California had even been doing that. I know that there were funds allocated, but I didn't know that that program ever really became a thing. Apparently Newsom decided to nix it because he's going to run for the presidency. Last Beacon, I know that you don't like the cake, but it's more easy for me because I'm worthless. I'm more of a simpler mind, if you get what I mean. And it's Borva, set it and forget it sort of thing. I'm not 100% sure exactly what you just meant. Maybe you were channeling Nancy Pelosi? If you look at the transing kids comments, it's like, what? What are you talking about, dude? I do not believe that children should be transed. And the idea of allocating public funds to do so is somehow even worse, so. Copium Poppies, Grok was advocating against mixing chemicals and I called it racist and said diversity is our strength and its responses were surprisingly based. Yeah, it's funny when people decide to troll AI systems. They're easily trollable. Crowder's Trump impression is really good too. Yeah, his Trump impression is good. Myself, I can only do a Bernie Sanders. I mean, I can do W, but it's an 8 out of 10, I guess. So Pelosi is going to be gone after almost 40 fucking years. Why are we re-electing these people? That's my biggest question. I don't believe in term limits for Congress, okay? Because if someone genuinely is doing a good job representing their constituents, who cares? I mean, you got to realize that people that are in Congress, they represent either the will of the people of a state or the will of the people of a district within a state. So it's really nobody else's business what kind of rules they have with regards to these things. A state could impose term limits, and it would be legal. That being said, the federal government, I don't think, should really wade into the issue. Same is true of Supreme Court justices. The only thing that should be strictly term limited is the presidency. And this is sort of a long-standing moray within our culture anyway. But, by God, people should at least be encouraged to vote people out after some period of time when they're clearly breaking down. You've had people, and I look at, you've got Strom Thurmond, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell. A lot of these, people, they've gotten to the point where they've got significant health issues. that the public doesn't even get to know about, by the way, because of confidentiality, which I don't believe that people in government should actually have with regards to medical issues. I believe that should be public record, actually. For anyone else, it should be confidential. But the medical rules should be amended so that we know, what prescriptions are you on, Miss Pelosi? Oh, dementia meds? What a surprise. That's what I believe should happen. It's an easy solution. Ultimately. Skippy, yeah, Feinstein was absolutely out of it. She could barely even hold her. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, another great example. It's like, again, I don't believe in a term limit, but when you're falling asleep during the presidential address and you can barely walk and, you're all fucked up, maybe it's time to retire. Ultimately, I think in some cases, the families and the people that are surrounding these high-powered politicians and political figures, they don't encourage them to leave office because it's so lucrative. And so they're just grifting the money. They're like, well, as long as they're in the Senate, they're making this shit ton of money. We can do the trading for them. We'll do insider trading and everything else. Because clearly Pelosi has done that, especially. And we'll make a lot of money. And then when they die, then we divvy up the spoils. It's really grotesque. It's fucking ghoulish. I have a feeling that a lot of times it's the families of these individuals. Yeah, I don't believe that some of these people really even want to be continuously in office. This is why I can actually give some begrudging respect to the Obamas. In consultation, I'm sure, with Barack, Michelle Obama decided never to run for office. Well, I mean, you're retiring from the battlefield with grace. You made your point. You don't want to be old and decrepit and fucked up and, end up dying in office or something like that. So, yeah, unlike Nancy Pelosi, she's basically like the Crypt Keeper at this point. Kitty be good. I mean, look at Dianne Feinstein. Yeah, it is grotesque. Yeah, Feinstein just stayed in there and apparently nobody told her that she should leave. And she was all messed up towards the end. She couldn't even speak. She couldn't even move hardly. Last speaking. I mean, he was the one that created this Frankenstein. If it were to go crazy and he starts ranting and raving at this particular Frankenstein, it will be so funny. Yeah. Politics right now is a very, very weird thing to be covering. Like, I've been through some periods before as a political commentator where things get odd. But I don't think they've ever been this odd, honestly. This is from Rapid Response 47. POTUS to Republican senators. It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do and terminate the filibuster. Let's weigh in on this. Termination of the filibuster, which is right now trending and going viral, is a very much double-edged sword. On the one hand, let's say that you terminate the filibuster. Well, you can ram through your budget, you can institute election law reform, and a bunch of other stuff too. That's great. It's wonderful. The problem is that down the road, you might end up with a Democratic administration now having a filibuster-proof majority, which would be just 51 seats, and ramming through its own policies. So that's problem number one. Problem number two. If you don't end the filibuster, shutdown drags on and so forth, and the Democrats take control anyway because you haven't done any election reform, they're probably going to nuke the filibuster themselves. Problem number three, though. Let's say that you do eliminate the filibuster. So the GOP has decided, no, we're going to have our budget, you're done. Do you really expect the Republicans to be effectual enough to institute that electoral reform? Because one of the greatest advantages to removing the filibuster would be election reform, so voter ID laws and things like that. They would be bogged down in the courts, but at the very least, you could attempt to pass them. But do you really trust the Republicans to push them through? Because I certainly, after what I've seen, in the last months, I don't believe that the GOP would actually be willing to do so. Even without the filibuster, I don't think they would end up with the Senate votes. I mean, you'd end up with J.D. Vance effectively deciding election law in the United States. That's a problem. Then it gets injuncted by the courts anyway. You know that will happen because they've been doing the lawfare thing now for the last year. Here's probably the best solution. End the filibuster. And again, I'm hesitant to prescribe this. End the filibuster. Immediate vote. Only if you know that you have the votes. You get rid of the filibuster, you pass through the budget. Okay, that's easy. Then immediately docket legislation with regards to election law. Then you restore the filibuster. You change the Senate rules back, and you restore it once again so that you need 60 votes to achieve the quorum that you need to hold votes and pass things through, generally speaking. You restore the filibuster. In fact, you top load the courts and then restore the judicial filibuster too, which the Democrats nixed before. If you can manage that, then you can expect court cases. The courts probably will be relatively amenable to the concept of reform of voting law in the United States. You may have to take it to the state level, though, because generally the states handle those laws. So there becomes another problem. So you've got 4 or 5 problems in a row. While it is a good idea to ram through a budget and change the voting laws, because if you change the voting laws, then the Democrats can't cheat anymore, then you ostensibly, potentially hand them power in the future. What if the Trump administration implodes and the Democrats wipe the shit out of the Republicans in the next election? Well, now they don't have to deal with a filibuster, now do they? So it's a double-edged sword. It's impossible really to figure out a methodology by which you actually have a positive way forward. Because I may trust Trump with, generally speaking, being able to sign off on stuff without a filibuster, without any Senate blockages. Or JD or something, but we're not sure that that's going to be the next administration. I mean, Trump could drop dead of a stroke tomorrow. JD Vance could get shot. Something crazy could happen. Well, then you might end up with the Democrats in control of things for an extended period of time, and there being no way to actually block their socialism. It could be a problem. CG King of Comics. Heads up, Ethan Van Sciver plans on making you his next personal project. You're done, buddy. This channel is now his property. Okay. We'll look up who that is, I suppose. Oh, he's a comic artist. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, if he wants to do comics of me, that's pretty cool. The Dashing Rogue. All Zordon needs to recruit a few teenagers with attitude, and we can't have a mystery meet Power Rangers. What? Yeah, sorry, I don't know really anything about comics. I don't get the reference. Copium Poppies. Nancy Pelosi's tits, that is all. Yeah, no thanks. Yeah, just don't do a comic of Nancy Pelosi's tits, please. Mulgara, getting rid of the filibuster to pass a Biden-era budget is peak Republican politics. It's retarded. I'm against it completely. Yeah, I lean against it myself, because it's like, you're handing fodder to people who may not be as trustworthy as yourself. It's sort of like, you make a gun and leave it on the table and then somebody else grabs it, basically. Last speaking. Shit, I meant K-Cup. First super chat's coming up. Mulgara. Trusting the government to give up that kind of power is a mistake. They won't give it up. That's the other problem. Let's say the Republicans nuke the filibuster. Great, you got your budget. You got your voter reform that has to go through the courts. What's to say the Republicans can also be trusted to restore the filibuster after doing that to end the Schumer tantrum? I don't know. Mulgera, trusting the... Oh, I just read that one. Oh, wait, you posted it twice. Derp. Last beacon. That's what I keep saying about nihilist misanthropes. They don't really care about people. All of they care about is social media clout. Yeah, I do not trust the GOP to do the right thing. Well, I think that Trump, sort of understands what's going on. Do I really trust the GOP Senate? The McConnells of the party, the Mitt Romneys of the party, or even the House GOP? No, not really. No, it's basically like watching Animal House or something like that. So, I have to generally disagree with Trump on this particular issue. Again, I understand the premise of why you would want to nuke the filibuster, and you can grandstand about it. Let's get them because you can, get the SNAP benefits back, reopen. The FFA Federal Aviation Administration is probably going to cut flights as of tomorrow. So these are going to be big problems. But the alternative is basically opening, Pandora's box, so to speak, and then handing it to your political opponents. I don't think that's a good idea. Per thread, Sticks, stop boosting your own 4chan threads. Believe it or not, I've never actually done that, although I have chuckled warmly at them being posted. Mulgera, trusting the government to get that kind of power is a mistake. They won't give it up. That's the third time you posted it, my man. I don't know if you're doing that by mistake or not. Not 100% sure. I think I missed a super chat over here. Maybe? Not 100% sure. No, I guess not. Oh. I thought that was the mail, but it was a school bus going by. Ballcraft. So Christian Zionists want the Antichrist to come, who could also be the tiny hat Messiah. Well, there is what's called the Temple Institute. Have you heard of the Red Heifer? They're trying to rebuild the Temple of Solomon, and they've got some sacrificial cows, actually. They've built all their tools, but the Israeli authorities won't allow them to enter the Temple Mount. They would have to destroy the Dome of the Rock in order to build it. I have a feeling that this would cause a bit of conflict, just saying. Alexei, Qatari influence is worse than Israel. Qatar is a real money sponge. They've got so much money you wouldn't believe it. Mulgera, the GOP minus Massey and Rand Paul are progressives going the speed limit. The GOP truly is the party of that bastard Lincoln. Yeah, I agree with you mostly. Last beacon, Nancy Pelosi, Grandma Tits. Nancy Pelosi, Grandma Tits. Nancy Pelosi, Grandma Tits. Yeah, Jeep guy, what do red heifers taste like? That reminds me of a very, very funny post I remember on 4chan years ago on Politically Incorrect. There's a post, and people were, spazzing out because the Temple Institute said, well, we might have found, the proper red heifer. And then somebody said something like, it would be funny if someone slaughtered it and then wore its bloody pelt while eating its roasted meat and just staring into the camera silently. And I was thinking to myself, that would actually be really, really fucking funny. Limp wrist redux, only like bagels and matzo balls. I will say that bagels are good. Yeah, Jewish food is actually pretty tasty. I've had matzo soup before. It's a little bit like a wonton soup, but generally without, you wouldn't put pork in it like you would generally with a wonton soup. It's pretty good. Last beacon. I've never tried gefilte fish, though. I have no clue what that tastes like. Last beacon. I mean to say I like the K-Cups because it's easier for me to just simply send it and forget it. Because I don't like to use your standard coffee filter and the voice to text fucked it up. Yeah, I brew both coffee and tea in a standard drip filter, actually. And it works well, just like this with the Yunnan jig. Personally, I think that it's easier. I mean, it's not much different than a K-cup when you think about it anyway. It's just a paper filter instead of a plastic. And then you just load it with water the same as you would with a K-cup thing and call it a day. Carson 87, my state of California is cooked. Many counties that are normally red voted for Prop 50. Counties like Inyo County. It makes no sense. That's why we need to change the laws with regards to voting integrity, actually. Which, I mean, again, this ties into the filibuster argument because that's one thing you could accomplish. It would have to be litigated, but probably before the next general election, you could get it done. The problem is trusting the Republicans to actually do their job. As we have seen, some of them are reluctant to do so. And they break rank all the time randomly and do crazy shit and stuff like that. Now, we've got to talk about the boat strikes. Trump admin tells Congress it currently lacks legal justification to strike Venezuela. This is, by the way, very good news. The Trump administration, I think, realized that it was, and I think they did A/B testing on this, it was a very unpopular opinion that we should use strikes in Venezuela proper. Nobody really cares if you bullseye a narco boat. In fact, I wish that they were blowing more of them out of the water. Who gives a shit? Use them as target practice. Hell, blow up a fishing trawler too, just for good measure. Just joking on that one. But actually striking inside of Venezuela would be more legitimately an act of war and could lead to long-term repercussions, diplomatically specifically. I mean, Venezuela can't fight the U.S. military, but you've got so many guerrilla movements in the country that have been financed by Chavez and Maduro over time, and they are fairly well armed and fairly well trained, and they don't really have any civilian opposition. So trying to stage a Bay of Pigs style thing in Venezuela, or even utilizing drones to strike drug sites, is a bad idea. Rather, you do as Rubio has alluded to, again, much better Secretary of State than I expected. You monitor the area, you say, look, we know the ports that they're using. We know the kind of boats that they're using. We can literally see them from space. It's not difficult to do. We've got the technology to constantly monitor this entire shoreline. We know where they're coming from, so we just bullseye the boats. Although I think they should wait until they're approaching U.S. territorial waters. That way, hopefully, people on the shore get a good view of the cloud of smoke rising out of the destroyed boat. I think that they should do that. It would take the diplomatic issue off the table. Let them get close. Arm the Coast Guard more. Why not give the Coast Guard some destroyers or something like that and literally run a blockade of the entire Gulf of America? That would be funny. Copium Poppies, instant coffee is best coffee. Only if you're dumping a couple sleeves of it in your chili. Mulgera, the GOP minus Massey and Rand Paul are progressives going the speed limit. No, you already said that. I can't. Last speaking, I'm older than Nancy Pelosi's service in Congress. 42 over here. Mexican Trumper, cap and sticks, ship ahoy. Blast 'em. Yeah, let's try to crowdfund a trawler and we'll armor it and put some deck guns on it and we'll go take care of the narcos ourselves. Only, we'll just menace them and then we'll impound the drugs and sell them, I guess. Mulgera, I mean, you have to pay taxes on it, but at least that benefits the U.S. economy. Mulgera, I was doom scrolling last night and someone I follow just posted fart transplant. That was it. I was dying laughing. I'm mature, I promise. Sounds like one of my morbid stories. I'll be writing some more of them later. I just made one about one of our cats because she killed a small bird and she ate it, except for the head, and the feathers were everywhere. There's still some floating around. Then she presented the severed head, like Vlad the fucking Impaler, to my dad and dropped it in, her scratch pad zone. The one that, you put catnip on and they scratch around, get high. Ripped it apart and ate it, and then beheaded it. And she has done this multiple times, by the way. She's vicious. She's as fluffy as a cloud, and she's the sweetest cat towards humans. Like, you know, you can just pick her up and carry her around and stuff like that, and she has no problem with it. But towards small animals, Jesus. She's genocidal. Copium poppies. Hey, I normally try and avoid sugar, but found something amazing today when shopping, and no food stamps being cut hasn't dropped prices like people are claiming. Girl Scout cookie Thin Mint Pop-Tarts. Yuck. Fuck no. Mulgera. I'm actually against the ship bombing. Venezuela doesn't bring fentanyl. That comes from Mexico and China. Also, what proof is there that the boats are bringing drugs other than trust me, bro? Again, because intel from the sky works wonders. And yes, a lot of it is actually cocaine and things like that. Much of it is not fentanyl. But, you know, I would prefer to have a domestic cocaine market. I believe it would thrive in southern Florida, of all places especially. And I believe in ending the drug war so we can just make our own drugs. Seems like a win-win to me. Government's getting its cut, people are making money, a new industry is born, we can sell it to other countries. Maybe we'll start selling cocaine to the Venezuelans. Why not? We were meant to be a industrial merchant marine nation to begin with anyway, so... And the drug war, the problem will solve itself real quick. Copium poppies. Actually, instant coffee is great for any kind of iced coffee. I hate hot drinks. Also works great in a steak marinade. I put it in chili. You only need a couple of sleeves for a big-ass pot of chili. It gives it an interesting flavor. It also adds a little bit of caffeine. So, yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Caffeinated chili, that's what I'm talking about. Mulgera. Also, this crusade is literally combining the war on terror and the war on drugs. It's dumb. Well, you can't deny that Venezuela as a communist nation is terroristic. I mean, just look at how they terrorize their own population. Let's see. Where did it go? Oh, no, it's not that one either. John Hoyle, $10 for doing what you do. Thank you. Taco woman Sandy Ravage, Comey's daughter, offered to free Epstein if he implicated Trump. Huh. I did not know that, actually. That story is so convoluted, it's like a pile of spaghetti and you're trying to find one strand and untangle it from all the rest of them. Apocalypse Wow. Do you remember the TV show Wonder Chosen? No, I have never heard of it. I think. He needs some milk. Trump was winning the government shutdown for a while, but I'm guessing things like Snap have hurt him now. How does he navigate this now that Dems are less inclined to come to the table? Well, I mean, you can nuke the filibuster. It is a possibility. It just comes with possible side effects. Sort of like, hey, you know, you've got cancer, and we'll give you chemotherapy, but it might kill you. Angela Sky. Clank from Hawaii. New Yorkers forget that communism hates food. Famines in China and food shortages in Venezuela and the Soviet Union come to mind. Yeah, central planning doesn't really work. It's much easier to simply incentivize people to grow a bunch of food because it's profitable to do so. And then everyone has food all of a sudden, and it's cheaper. In fact, we're actually artificially increasing the price of food in the United States. We're such an agricultural juggernaut. Did you know this? They literally pay farmers to keep land fallow. They artificially reduce the output of some of these things. Corn grows so well in the middle of the United States that they started pumping it into the food in the form of high fructose corn syrup and into the gasoline supply because there was just too much of it. And they said, well, shit, we got to do something with this fucking shit. And so they started buying it up in huge amounts. And then they started sending it to third world countries, along with other grains and soybeans and things like that. The United States probably left, I mean, assuming that the farmers were left to their own devices and all agrarian land was utilized, We probably could feed the whole world population with this one country. But the problem is, if the price drops too precipitously, then people can't make a living on it because it's intertwined with the rest of the economy. This is where some degree of intervention is actually necessary. Copium poppies. No, they're really good. You gotta try them. Huh. No, I'll skip those ones. Mulgara, I'm convinced the drugs are a pretext for regime change in Venezuela. Rubio has wanted regime change in Venezuela for over a decade. Trump has been listening to Rubio way too much. Dude's a tard. I don't give a shit if they blow Maduro's head off, honestly. I just don't want a war with Venezuela. I don't know what it would accomplish. Copium poppies. Why the fuck is Trump so pig-headedly anti-drug? I mean, he could solve a lot of problems simply by abolishing the DEA and Controlled Substances Act. He actually has come out generally in favor of legalizing marijuana. He's actually out ahead of many Democrats on that issue. I believe in simply ending all anti-druggery. Basically, if it's not DUI or it's an aggravated factor in a violent crime or something, if you're on your own property, who cares if you're using drugs? I don't care if you overdose on fentanyl in your backyard. But, yeah, other than like DUI and things like that, I don't believe in enforcing the drug war at all. But Trump has actually outflanked the Democrats on this issue. People forget this. I mean, other than Bernie Sanders and a handful of really far-left individuals, the Democratic Party was lock, stock, and barrel against legalizing marijuana until very, very recently. Obama actually ended up with the state of Montana protesting, and in Idaho, actually, protesting against him because he was still raiding medical marijuana dispensaries. And that was not very long ago, you know? And that's a left-wing Democrat. Threads. How can I finance Americans to save the UK? Airdrops welcome. It would be difficult. You'd need a billionaire probably to finance such a thing. Apocalypse, wow. Wonder Chosen was an extremely warped but hilarious TV show on MTV in the early 2000s. Way ahead of its time. You'd love it. It's on Internet Archive. I'll have to check that out. By the way, please no more super chats. I actually have pizza available. And so I'm going to be having that with mushrooms, of course. Last time I got Domino's, I got it with olives, and I got food poisoning, so I've decided not to do that again. Ballcraft, you can legalize drugs, but I want asylums back. Even trade, baby. Mulgara, Rubio is a Cuban like Pompeo. He's a neocon and shouldn't be listened to at all. He's done a better job and is more principled than I originally estimated. I will give him a pass for now. Depending on his future actions, of course. That definitely depends. Yeah, always get mushrooms and extra cheese. I don't understand people that put a lot of meat on the pizza. Or anything that's too soggy. Like, this is why a lot of people don't like pineapple pizza, okay? Somebody will take pineapple chunks, right? And they'll dump the pineapple juice out, and then they'll just dump it into the cheese. That's not the way to do it. You take the rings, and you slice them extra thin, then you pad them partially dry. Then you put them in with the cheese or whatever on top. You don't want to overload the pizza. Unless you're making like a literal pizza pie or some shit like that. If you're making a standard Brooklyn-style pizza, if you overload it with liquid, it's going to inundate the dough. It's not going to get crisp unless you overcook it, in which case, then you've got a different problem. It's pretty easy. Please stop sending super chats. I'm literally asking you not to send me any more money at the moment because I'm starving. Insane hippie insane. No Muslim can be trusted to hold office in America. Islam has not gone through an enlightenment period and most likely never will because it would require Muhammad to not be the last prophet. It would also require him to not have huffed cave gas and said weird stuff that made no sense. Just look up the story of Aisha's goat eating several pages of the original Quran. Prince of Crows. Would you go on side scrollers? I don't know what it is, but maybe. Angela Sky. Clank. SNAP and welfare benefits are now the Dems bought the black vote. I have known people who have been on these programs generationally. That does happen. Although some of us took food stamps very briefly and then attempted to get back on our feet and were sad about the fact that we had to take them in the first place. I've paid enough back into the system, 100 times over, so I don't regret it. Copium poppies. Who cares about marijuana? It's already legal in most places anyway. And it's fun. Full legalization needs to happen, not shitty half measures like decriminalization. Decriminalization doesn't get to the core issue. Just make it so you can possess it, you can smoke it, as long as it's, again, not DUI or something like that, and grow a few plants for yourself. It doesn't need to be commercialized or anything. Copium poppies. Asylums would be a key component of legalization. Probably, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go offline. I will be back tomorrow on Friday with another live stream. Tonight, I'm going to eat some pizza. Probably write some more of my book. I'm still plowing my way through morbid stories. I'm making good progress, by the way, so I'm really happy about that. And then hopefully see the Aurora Borealis. It's a little cloudy now, but I think that there's still hope. So yeah, I will be back tomorrow with another live stream. That's what I'm talking about. That's about all. Peace out.